Well, welcome to another session of Fridays. We're so excited. I tell you, today we have an amazing guest with us tonight, and we're just going to spend some time today and just get to know her and really kind of continue to explore what does it mean to look and be and feel and live a life in terms of victorious family. What does that consist of? Well, I'm excited about our guest today. Her name is Sharifah Hardie. And I tell you, she's an expert. She's a business consultant. She's a talk show host. She's an influencer. I mean, she's all the above. Now, she's from Long Beach, California, guys. So we're looking at someone from Long Beach, council candidate. I mean, her resume just go on and on, over 25 years of business experience. And so, as you know, we talk about how to balance work and home at Victoria's Family. And so we have an expert to talk to us about that. And she's coming to us today. We're going to talk about the family. We're going to talk about issues out there. We're going to just, as normal, we're going to keep it real. We're going to keep it raw, but we're going to keep it so that you walk away with some tips to help you as you walk through this life and try to see your family thriving in what it does. Well, Sharifah, welcome to Victorious Fridays. How are you doing today?
I am doing even better now that I have an opportunity to be on your show and to sit here and discuss parenting. I've been on numerous shows, but this is the first show that is based around the family. And what I always tell people is that my initial journey started because of the family. You know, people talk about speaking engagements and business and my books and different things like that, but I always reminded them I started on this path because I was a teenage mother. And I had my daughter when I was 18 years old, and all I wanted to be was a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to be there with my daughter, then later my son, because I felt that if I could hire somebody and pay them to do childcare or daycare, why can't I utilize those same resources to be there with my own children? And I didn't want to miss out on anything. I didn't want to miss their first words, their first steps. That literally would have broke my heart if I would have missed it. So for the last 20 something years, my kids are 23 and 26 now, everything I've done has been centered around my family.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Well, you certainly qualify for that mom, and we're gonna talk to you about that experience as well, and just share with us. You know what I like to do to start out. Just tell us about you. Do an introduction. I'm sure I touched a little bit on your background, but tell us a little bit about Sharifah and who you are and what you do and what your passion is.
Well, to sum it all up, I tell people I'm a servant of God. I'm here to serve. I was laid off 8 times, and and what happened is I had an argument with God. And people was like, "You argue with God?" And I said, "I absolutely did." I said, "Because God told me, and I heard him clearly when he said, 'Sharifah, I want you to help people.'" And I was like, "I'm not helping them people. Those people ain't even, they don't even like me. Why am I gonna help these people?" And God said, "Sharifah, I want you to help people." And I said, "No, I'm going to get a job." And again, I was laid off 8 times, and it was more than 3 times where I would get a job and I would be laid off 6 months to the day I was hired. There were jobs where I was employee of the month. I had perfect attendance awards. Like everything was fine and wonderful. And then I get called into the office and they're like, "Sharifah, we didn't have to let you go. We're relocating from California to Florida. We're moving from this. We're doing so many different things." But each time I would get laid off, I would hear God say, "Sharifah, I want you to help people." And it wasn't until later when I said, "Okay," because God was like, "Look, I don't know if you understand that I am God. Like, we are going to do this my way, one way or another." So at some point of wisdom, I said, I hear and I obey. And doors began to open because I was obedient to his word and I was doing what God put me on this earth to do. And that is to help people. Because everything I've done, I never imagined doing. I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined I would be here on your show today. What I wanted to do was simply to be a stay-at-home mom. And I knew back in 1994, when most people didn't even have computers or laptops in their home, the only way for me to make money and to stay at home was the internet. And so I built my website. And when I built my website, people were like, "That's cool. Build me a website." So I built them a website. And then I started marketing my website. And people said, "That's cool. Market my website." And I had so many different questions from people. I initially launched my own radio show, Ask Sharifah Radio, in 2009. It was a blog talk radio show, but I answered questions from business owners. I sat down with CEOs and some of the top executives in companies, from Wells Fargo to Boost Mobile to Mall of America, celebrities. I've interviewed Patti LaBelle, and it's really because I just wanted to be of service. And so I always remind people, if you keep service at the root of everything you do, you'll be successful. Even my talk shows now with the Roundtable Talk Show and Ask Sharifah Videocast, it's me being of service and allowing people to be able to promote themselves and also answer questions for people about business and entrepreneurship. But the key is family, God, service to humanity.
Wow, that's powerful. I love that idea. It starts with him, and he's sovereign, and yet, how do we serve others? And that's
Mhm.
such a challenge. So many of us are looking at ways to serve ourselves, and we forget that the greater of that is to serve others, right? He said, love him and then love others. And because we already know we love ourselves more than
Yes.
we need to. When you look at that, I mean, obviously we're just coming out of well, we're still in a pandemic, and
Mhm.
with COVID and so forth, and many have been either furloughed or laid off or let go from their jobs and things of that nature. Is there one word of wisdom that you would give them? I mean, you've experienced it 8 times.
Mhm.
What word of wisdom would you give that one that's looking probably at a hopeless situation, but yet we know there's hope? Any words of encouragement for them?
Absolutely. I'm gonna give you two quick things. Number one of the expressions that I live by, and I've seen it happen time and time again, is that there's a blessing in every curse. And if you believe that, know that, and accept that, you'll see life different. In the midst of COVID-19, in the midst of a global pandemic, I've seen some people, write their script, write their book, produce, their next idea that they want to do, start a new business, take their business from just simply being a brick and mortar to an e-commerce website. You have to look for the blessing. But if you look for the blessing, I guarantee you there's a blessing in every curse, because I believe and I stand on his word that all things work together for the good for those that love the Lord. And so if you accept that and you believe that no matter what's happening that you see as bad or wrong or evil, you'll find that there is some good coming out of it. Like, you see people who say, okay, well, yes, COVID-19 happened, but look how clean the streets are. Look how clean the air is. You see more of nature and the animals coming back because we weren't all outside messing it up. The other small thing, or the other thing that I would say, is what I preached about this past Sunday. Was I was telling people what my grandmother would always say, and a lot of my lessons I simply got from my grandmother. But whenever I was worried, my grandmother would simply say to me, peace, be still. And that's what I always tell people: just be still, just wait for God to speak, wait for that message to come to you, because it will, if you're just still. But so often we're just moving and we feel like we have to do something and we have to act. One of the things that I live by is something that Oprah Winfrey says. Sometimes it's scripture, sometimes it's celebrities, you never know. But Oprah says, when I don't know what to do, I don't do anything. She said most people, when they don't know what to do, they have to do something. She said, I don't do it till I know exactly what to do. And so I always tell people, just be still and just wait, because in the midst of everything, in the midst of the destruction, in the midst of the illness, in the midst of the chaos, God is still on his throne. So just accept that and be still and just know that.
Absolutely. Wait on the Lord. That is so powerful. Well, today, we're here to talk about family, and I think about it, as I look at COVID, a stat that came out that just really shocked me. It said that 38% of parents in our household, they really felt, I guess, confused or anxiety and things of that nature in raising their kids. And another stat came out is, many parents had just embraced, being home on a regular basis. They're not used to that, and anxiety built up in the home. And for the first time, they really began to engage their children at a different level. Where you couldn't go anywhere, right? You couldn't go drop them off at school and things of that nature. And so we had to parent. And so, parents, I believe they want to do the right thing. Sometimes they just don't know how, right? And so I want to get from you, what challenges do you see? What issues do you see as a mom, as a parent, and what do you see in our society dealing with the family today? What would you say the state of the family is today from your perspective? And what issues are you seeing or hearing about as you talk to people and walk, and have conversations with people?
Well, one of the things that I always say is no matter where we are, we didn't just get there. There was a
Mm,
history that allowed us to build up to where we are. So if you want to understand where we are, you have to look at how we got here. And so this is one of the conversations that I used to have with my mother. My mother was raised in a generation that believed that children are to be seen and not heard. And so I believe that if you take away a child's voice, especially a female child's voice, you take away their right to say no. You take
mm,
away their boundaries. So I believe that, and I always I told my children that you can say whatever you want to say to me. You just cannot say it however you want to say it. You still have to be respectful, but you have an opinion. Babies have opinions. They may not be able to verbalize them, but if you listen to them, cool, you can tell what they like. You can tell what they dislike. You know what I mean? So you have to be able to talk to children and be able to communicate with children. My son now is 23, but I remember, and I always tell people this story, when he was 21, he came to me, he was like, Mom, can I talk to you? So we had this long talk, and we talk all the time, but at the end of this particular conversation, he said to me, he said, Mom, thank you for talking to me. And I said, no, son, thank you for talking to me.
yeah.
Because how many young African American men who are 21 years old go to their mother for advice on relationships or school or finances? Usually it's the streets that, or their friends and their peers and their partners, or maybe the woman in their life that give them advice. But he came and he spoke with me, and I wanted to acknowledge that with him. And that the main thing is communication. With my mother, one of the things that kind of triggered all of this is my mother's corporate. She works for a large, probably Fortune 100 company right now. Very successful lady, a lot of degrees, wonderful, love her to death. But as a child, whenever I would call her, she would say, not trying to hurt me, but she would say, what do you need? I'm busy. I'm at work. Like that was her thing. Like, I'm at work.
Mm.
I'm busy. Because that's how our society is. That's how our environment is. Like, no phones, nothing personal. You're here to do work. And so in my child mind, I felt kind of like, to a certain extent, abandoned. Like, I couldn't call her. I couldn't talk to her. And when she got home, she was tired because she was working all day from trying to feed these kids, basically. So what I did was I made it a note to always let my children know that I have time for them, that I'm, no matter what it is, you are the most important thing in my life. Some things sometimes have to wait, and that might be a job. That's why I don't want to go to work. Since then, I've gone to jobs. The last few years, I've been working at home, and that's what I prefer, so that I'm available to my children, to my family, to my life, to whoever needs assistance right now, as opposed to saying, you know what, I'm busy. What do you need? So when they looked at, so the generation that said children are to be seen and not heard looked at my generation and said, you're trying to be your child's friend. That was the thing that went out. Like, you're trying to be their friend. And I would tell them, yes, I am. I'm their best friend. I'm the person that they come to with questions or they need answers, the person that they know loves them more than anyone else in the world. But I think as a society, we have gotten so far away from the children, or children to stay in a child's place, that we allow children now sometimes to go too far, to be disrespectful, to get into adults
Yeah.
conversations, because I remember as a kid, people would always say, don't get it, this grown folks
Yeah.
conversation whenever we tried to say something. Now it's like everybody gets to say whatever they want. Or because we're out working, our kids are raising themselves. They're at home. They're doing whatever it is that they want to do. And so we don't always have that. They don't have that guidance or that parent in the house to say, no, little Johnny, don't have Cheetos for dinner. So we have to find a balance between being their friend and being their parent. That's what I believe.
Oh, that is so powerful. I think you grew up in the same neighborhood I grew up in, and you just didn't say much, right? But it was just a powerful time. When I think about it, your mom and your family and how you can balance work and home is such a challenge, isn't it? Here your mom is working 40 plus hours a week, trying to raise her children in the best way she knows how. And many parents, they want to do the right thing. Sometimes they just don't know how. Sometimes,
Mhm.
but your point of wisdom, it was, it's as simple as just spending time with them. It's as
Mhm.
simply as having a conversation. It's
Mhm.
as simple as having respect
Mhm.
for one another. And we have to remember that we're parents. We're
Yeah.
not friends. We're parents.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a difficult thing for today. When we look at another stat that just blows me away is that 96% of parents feel inadequate to
Mhm.
balance work and home.
Mhm.
They want to do it. They get caught up in the office. They're trying to, in their minds, do something to make ends meet and provide for the family and resource for the family. But yet, children, they just need someone to talk to. They just need parents to parent and be there,
Mhm.
be available. They
Mhm.
say the most powerful thing we can do as parents is be available.
Mhm.
And I always say, I sum it all up and just say love well. So I
Yes.
love your book. I love your story. It's just love well, right? I think that's the one most powerful answer.
Mhm.
Talk about as you were growing up. Where'd you grow up? What city?
I was born in Washington, D.C. I
Okay.
left there when I was 2, moved
Hmm.
to Columbus, Ohio. I've been in California since 85,
Wow.
mainly in Long Beach, excuse me, in Los Angeles, but I moved to Long Beach in 2003. So now I'm like, this is my city. I love my city. I can walk to the beach. I enjoy my life. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, that is so good. That is so good. Are there some, we talk about it, Victoria's family, which is our ministry, and we talk about equipping and preparing parents to be intentional in raising their kids in the Lord, and particularly, but
Mhm.
raising their kids, investing in their kids' life, and we like to see a movement more home centered and
Mhm.
church supported.
Mhm.
Although I believe totally in the church, I'm an elder in church, things of that nature, but let's start it in the home. Let's have those conversations in the home. And as they move out, we're preparing our children to have that bigger conversation, to
Mhm.
have that more logical conversation. And you've written books about love. I mean, all you need is love and things like that. Tell us a little bit about your work there and your book and how you're encouraging people through your material.
I'll talk about that, but I just want to bring up something that you mentioned is I have a cousin who's younger than me. She's 31. I'm in my 40s, and July marks the 1 year anniversary of her being in Long Beach. She moved
Okay.
from Virginia to Long Beach,
Mhm.
but she's actually the daughter of my cousin, so she's my second cousin. And this child was raised in the foster system. She
Mhm.
aged out at 18. She was, homeless, doing all these different things. She's the most beautiful, she has the most beautiful spirit you will ever see. You can see God in her, and God in the way she speaks and the way she moves. And so I've been working with her and trying to mentor her. But one of the things she said to me, she was like, Sharifah, the one thing that I want is to be a mom. She was like, that's what I want. She said, but my
Wow.
biggest fear is that I'm not going to be a good mom, because of her background and her relationship with both of her parents. She's like, this is what I want. She's like, but I just don't know. She was like, because I might mess it up. I may do it wrong. And I told her, I said, you know what? I said, let me tell you something. I said, there is no perfect parent. Every parent has made a mistake in some form or fashion, either something they said, something they did. I said, but children are the most resilient beings on this earth. A child, you can be the most horrible parent in the world, and if somebody tries to take that child away, all they want is their mom, no matter what mom has said or done. I told her, I said, but if you want to be a good mother, understand that you can't give what you don't have, right? So you can't give a child love if you don't have love. So first, let's focus on loving you and loving yourself, because you will make mistakes. You will do things wrong. But if a child truly knows and understands that they are loved and that you love them, then they'll be fine. They'll be okay.
That's powerful what you just talked about, because it is about loving well. And if you can show, kids, they know that love. They sense that love. And I tell parents, you can do a lot of things wrong, but if you love well once and love well consistently, they'll remember that above anything that you didn't do or thought you should have done, and so forth. And I believe that he makes up for those locust years. And this young lady that you're speaking to, because of the fact that now you're in her life and so many others are in her life walking with her, I believe that's an opportunity that she'll be able to learn something and experience something that she unfortunately didn't have in growing up, as maybe you and I had. And so, we just count those blessings, don't we? And what a
Definitely a
powerful
blessing.
story. Yeah.
It's
Boy,
definitely a
what a
blessing.
powerful story. Keep investing in women like that, because in the United States, there's over 800,000 foster care children in America, and I believe that when you look at the breakdown of the family, where you're seeing fragmented families, you're seeing families that's children have been disowned, if you will. You're seeing obviously divorce rates. You're seeing all types of things that's breaking down the natural family. But even with all of that, even with today, there's more non-biological parents raising children today than ever before. Around 10% is staggering. But even with all of that, children crave the love of their parent. They
Yes, they do.
crave the connection. And you can be absent for years, but yet they still craved. That's why I think they crave to meet them. They crave just to have relationships with them. They crave to be loved, don't we? Yeah. I
But
mean,
you can't be
that's what you.
loved by a parent. This is what, like, if you feel that your mother or your father either couldn't, didn't, or wouldn't love you, how can anybody else love you? And that's
Exactly.
what they take out into the world. So
Yeah.
our parents are the most important person in a child's life. Like, I take my role as a parent very serious, because I've always told my children, when you go out into the world, you represent me, whether you like it or not. Because if you're doing something, because I do it myself, when I go out and I see little kids doing stuff, I will say, where is their mother? Where is this child's mother?
Yeah.
Because that's the person that's responsible for making sure we're all right. But you don't have to worry about being perfect.
Yes.
I'm not always on call or on demand, or, when my kids need something, I'm not always, sometimes they have to wait. Sometimes they have to wait for the things that I'm going to get for them. Sometimes they have to wait for a conversation. If I have something to do, I make it clear that you are important to me and I will get to you. It may not be now, but I will get to you, So there's a balance that children need to understand. And as long as they are loved, they will be all right.
Those are words of wisdom. I'm excited about that, and I think that'll preach across any any lines right there. And one of the things that we're hoping, and even with dads, I tell kids there's never a time in a child's life they don't crave the love of their father.
Yes.
It's kind of like the mother's love. They kind of get it. It's innate. I don't understand it, but the father's love they just crave, and a lot of times girls are looking for their father to marry. They're looking for
Yes.
how it's been modeled, and so if it's absent in the home, girls are growing up not having that role model, not having that father figure in their life. Boys are growing up not having that father figure, and they crave it. What would you say about that? I mean, do you
Oh,
think that's
yes.
true? Do
Oh,
you
yes.
see
That's
that?
not even a thought. That's something I know to be true, because in my life, I've had conversations with people, even men, who say once they realize that my dad is in my life, they treat me a whole different way, because men will tell you that even in dating or relationships, that women who have their father in their life as opposed to women who don't, is a whole different paradigm. Like, for me, I tell people, I am so spoiled. I'm not selfish, but I'm spoiled, which means that I will give you the world, but I expect the world in return. So I'm not just thinking about myself, I'm thinking about both of us. But I get that from my parents. My parents are still together to this day. My dad is so funny. He's hilarious, and he's always trying to make me more independent at my age. The other day, I called him and asked him to light the heater, because it was cold. So I'm like, okay, can you light the pilot on the heater? So my dad says to me, what are you going to do when I roll on? And I'm like, I will get a contractor, but are you going to be here today or tomorrow? But there is not even a question of, are you going to do this? It's when, because you're my dad. That's your job. I'm under your cover, so I need you to do this. But the way it affects me in relationships that it might not affect other women is that my dad is amazing. My dad always takes care of my mom. My mom doesn't do any manual labor. He fixes everything around the house. My mom doesn't put gas in her car. My dad does that for her. He makes sure her car is always on a full tank. He always makes sure that we have money in our pockets. Even as adults, my dad will call and go, "You got enough money?" And it's like our joke, because I'm always like, "No, Dad, like I can have millions in the bank, right? Whatever, but I will never have enough." And he always is dad. So he always has to make sure that I don't care, that I'm not stressed or worried. He's there to take care of me. But the way that affects me in relationships, it's like, if you don't take care of me the way my dad took care of me, or takes care of me, or takes care of my mom, I'm not going to deal with you, because I'm just used to my dad. Like, if the whole family goes to dinner, it could be 12 people. My dad's like, "Oh, y'all go get what y'all want. I got it." And I'm like, yes.
One of the things of Victoria's family, we're trying to train parents how to be intentional.
Mhm.
And some are planners, some are not. But the idea is, we get this because less than 1% of Christians have a written spiritual plan. And
Mhm.
what we found, I mean, think about it. You're a business person, so you'll get this. Think about starting a business without a business plan.
Mhm.
Think about starting a church without a plan, a
Mhm.
ministry plan. And so we are people of planners. We plan vacations, we plan, college tuition programs, we plan state plans. We have all types of plans, but when it comes to being intentional and writing down our thoughts, a lot of us have it up here, but we don't have it on paper. Things like, do you have a vision statement for your home? Where are you taking kids? Have you defined a destiny? What goals? How do you teach a 3-year-old different than a 16-year-old, right? It's different age and stage. How do you teach your kids about intercessory prayer and things like that? So we walk parents through and equip them on how to be intentional in raising their kids in our way, in terms of how do you raise them with this foundation of faith in their life, as well as those parenting tips that you want to provide them. And no longer do we abdicate that outside, the home all the time, although it can be reinforced in that area. My position is, how do we start in the home and let it be reinforced in the church or outside? And so, as we approach parents that way, we find that many feel inadequate to do so. And I said, good, that's a good place to be, because there is a source that you can fall and build your strength and build your adequacy. Any thoughts and tips around how to be intentional as a parent? Any words of wisdom or encouragement for those parents who might feel like they're struggling, but yet they just need some words of encouragement right now, especially with everything that's going on. I mean, you have everything from COVID going on. You have tension out there in our society and culture. I believe there's a moral and spiritual decay around us, and everything else that's all those winds, I call them, that's kind of pushing against the family. Any words or wisdom, tips, thoughts that you have from experiences?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Excellent question. Thank you for that question. I think, to sum it up, my belief would be, kids don't listen to what you say.
Mm.
They listen to what you do. So you can't live a certain life and then expect your children to be God-fearing.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have to see God in you. They have to see God in everything you do, in every word you say, in every action. They have to be raised and brought up with God at the focus of their life. And what happens is, as parents, and this is not a judgment, it just is what it is, we tend to go through phases where for 17 years of our kids' life, we haven't had any type of beliefs or religion or anything or spirituality that we've shared with our children. And now it's like, every Sunday we're going to church because I have to save you. And it's like, okay, but for 17 years, you didn't have any type of, relationship with God for them to see in your life. So I always say, show them God in your life. If you're able to do that, they'll be able to figure out everything. I've always spoken to my kids about God just through simple conversation. I'll bring up quotes like I did earlier, but these are my beliefs. My daughter and I really always been on the same page as far as God and spirituality. That's my oldest. We always talk about it. She sees it in action. My son is just like me. Like, we're like twins, and I've never had a problem with him. I've never had a problem with him with girls, with gangs, with drugs, with drinking, with, talking back. Like, some people would say, I think he's the perfect child. He's not. He has his problems. But one day I was on Facebook and I saw his Facebook profile, and this child put on his profile that he was an atheist. And I never screamed, I never yelled, but I was like, oh, take that down. And he was like, but mom, and I'm like, no, you're going to take that down. I said, because that is arrogant. He was like, but that hurts my feelings for you to say that is arrogant. I said, son, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but I'm telling you what it is. I said, it's arrogant to say that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is no God. I said, at least say you're agnostic. I said, say that you don't know, that you don't have that personal experience. I said, but if you ask God to show himself to you, he will. I said, even God respects boundaries. He doesn't go where he's not invited. You have to invite him into your life. And he listened and he took it down. So a couple of years later, after that conversation, he was trying to talk to this little girl at work, and they worked together. And then finally, when she went to school and she left and he didn't see her, and he was kind of sad because, he missed his little friend. Couple of months after that, the school that she attended came to where he was working to visit, because he works for an amusement park. So they were at the amusement park, and he saw the girl. They started talking, exchanged numbers, and he comes home. He was like, Mom, you won't believe what happened. He was like, the universe brought her to me. And I'm like, really, son? I thought you were an atheist. I thought. He was like, Mom. I'm like, no, but I'm just saying, like, you're making it like, you don't believe in anything. And then you're saying that this happened for you. So it's like, show kids that there are people, humans, that have to see to believe. So you can preach to them, you can tell them what the Bible says all day, but they have to see it to really experience it and to get it. So that's why I would tell any parent, walk your walk, right? Walk your walk. And if you're walking the walk of God, God will handle everything else. Keep them in your prayers, show them love, because that's what God is. No matter what religion you call it, whatever, God is love. That's who the essence of who he is. And so you have to embody that love of God for your children so that they can see it in everything that you do, not just lip service.
That's so good. Model it well, right? And they catch it more than by modeling than you tell them, right? Than you can tell them. So in wrapping this up, I'm enjoying this. I think we can go on for a couple of hours here, but unfortunately, the attention span of the audience, they want it quick now. They want the microwave stuff. And so I'm not good at that. It takes me about 20 minutes just to say my name. So and I think about the same for you. So I think we could probably go for a few hours, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your work, your book. I think you just have a new book out recently and so forth, but tell me about the work that he's called you to do and just some of your materials and anything you'd like to share with us there.
Well, I have so much going on. I mean, I do have the book, but my focus right now is really the roundtable talk show. That's really what I am so passionate about. I ran for Long Beach City Council last year, and then it ended in the March 3rd primary election. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I wasn't selected for Long Beach City Council, but I said they wouldn't give me the city council, so I took the round table. But I was going to have a platform where I could have a voice. Like, you are not going to shut this little Black girl up. I'm going to talk. I'm going to say whatever it is that I had to say. And so weekdays at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, I have guests such as yourself. I would love to have you on the show, but it's 5 guests. And we have a roundtable discussion about, first we introduce ourselves and our business, but then we get different views, and people have just been blown away because typically when you're on a panel, it's people who are just like you. Maybe they're all talk show hosts, they're all entrepreneurs, or all business owners. And these 5 people could be anything. One of the guests was amazed the other day. He's a CEO, and then we had a tarot reader, and then we had a guy who focused on teaching people how to read the Torah. So it's just people from diverse backgrounds who have the same experiences, which at the end of the day, we all want to feed our children. We all want to be happy. We all want the American dream. And so I'm so passionate about giving people a platform where they can talk about what they have going on. I also have Ask Sharifah video cast, which I love as well. It's a little different, but it's a one-on-one interview like this. So it's me just speaking to someone, but the round table is my baby, mainly because it's so many people. You never know what's going to happen, what's going to be said, if it's going to get heated, if I have to hit the mute button. You can't say that. You can't cut people off. So it's just interesting to have so many people, and I do it every day. I want to give a shout out to Arden Mclaughlin. I love Arden. Arden has been on my show twice, and she's an example of a guest who, when I first had her on the show, she was sitting outside the porch of her parents' house because she was quarantined, and she had, I think, on sweats and a ponytail or something. And then she comes back for the second show, and she has her makeup on. She's back at home, and I'm like, Arden, is that you? You know what I mean? She's like, yes, it's me. And it's just beautiful because I always invite people to return often, because maybe you didn't get everything out, or maybe you have more that you wanted to say, or maybe you just had so much fun. You're like, I got to do this again. I've had guests that have been on my show 5 and 6 times because they just want to be a part of the Roundtable Talk Show. So my book, Signs You Might Be an Entrepreneur, How to Discover the Entrepreneur in You, is for entrepreneurs who are just starting out, because I always tell people, not only do I help people to make money, I also help people to save money. Because when you're just going online as an entrepreneur, you don't know what to believe. Some people say you have to do this, you have to do that. That costs $5. No, it really costs $5,000, and you don't know. I've been doing this for 26 years. I offer free consultation. Give me a call. Ask Sharifah. If you have any questions, I am here to serve.
Ask for Sharifah. I love it. You're right. I tell people it's easy to make money. The key is how you keep money.
Yes.
And so you've got to be able to keep it. And then I want people to say, how do I serve? How do I give it away? And see the society impacted. Thank you so much. I'm so enjoying this. One of the things I want to leave with is just an encouragement. You talked about at the initial that, you had looked at 8 different jobs and all types for all types of reasons. And I believe that 3 things happen. Either the Lord is trying to protect you from them. Sometimes they're trying to protect them from you. And sometimes he's just trying to protect you from yourself. And I think just hearing your story, that obviously, as you said, he knows much better than us. And what he had for you is something even more grander, something even greater. It reminds me as Martha and Mary, and one is at the foot of Jesus and just enjoying him in intimacy, and Mary comes and say, wait a minute, I'm here working and she's over here just kind of relaxing. And he says, no, she's doing the better of the 2. And so what you're doing now through this work is the better of the 2. And the lives that you're impacting is not only impacting that life, but it's impacting generations to come. And so keep doing what you're doing, Sharifah, and Ask Sharifah, and all of that. I love it, and would be honored to be around the table. And I believe that healthy discussions happen around the table. We're encouraging parents to really do we call it family devotionals, but you can call it anything. But just the old school of going back and having conversation around the table. We used to do that. And I remember those days, just spending time and talking about all types of topics. And nothing was barred. And we just sat around the table and had conversation as parents and children. And that's how we learned a great deal. And so we want to encourage parents to really live out this process, as Sharifah just mentioned. How do we live this life where we're investing in our children? We're loving them well. We're prioritizing them. And at the same time, I think we can sum this session up to say, love is more powerful than anything else that we can offer. So, Sharifah, we thank you. We thank you for what you're doing and how the Lord's using you. Keep doing it. And before we shut down, I'll give you the final word in the last minute we have.
Well, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity immensely because I always talk about business. And I think a lot of people miss, like I said earlier, the fact that the business was motivated by the family, not the other way around. I don't, focus on the business. No, it's the family first, and then everything else comes from it. The other thing you said about the 8 layoffs, I did a Facebook quiz. You know how we love those little funny little Facebook quizzes. One time, this was years ago, and it said, it was a 7 deadly sins. And so you take this little quiz and it tells you what your particular 7 deadly sin was. And mine was sloth. And I was like, what? Like, how can that be? But then I began to understand that if God had not closed those doors, I would still be at that job, because I felt like nothing says I love you like direct deposit. Like if that's what keeps me happy, knowing that my money is going to be on the bank. In the bank on Friday or whatever day it was. So God had to literally say, shut everything down, because I would have been, like a sloth. I would have stayed. I wouldn't have been left had I not been laid off. So sometimes we have to look at the doors that are being closed for us and really ask ourselves the question, why is this door being closed? But what happens is the door closes and then we like, okay, I'm gonna open this door. So we open it. And then it closes again, and then we open it, and we're like, no, maybe God is saying this is not the door for you. So if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I just implore everyone who's watching this show to understand that you may be going through a time in your life, maybe your finances or your business or your family situation, and you may feel that it's chaos. Like, what is going on? I done lost everything. And believe me, I've been there. I've lost everything I own aside from the actual clothes I had on my back. Everything else was gone, but that opened up an opportunity for me to do other things. So don't look at your situation as where you currently are. Just trust and believe that where you're going and where you're going to wind up is so much greater, and that you're going through this for a reason. I've been divorced twice. I've been laid off 8 times. I've raised 2 children. I've been homeless, but I did that for one reason. And that is because nobody, Terrence, can look at me and say, oh, I can't do it because I'm not a white man. I can't do it because I'm a little sick. I can't do it because I was born poor. For every person who gives me a I can't do it story, I can give you the name and the story of someone who has done it. Wow. So don't look at your current circumstances and your current situation of where you are as the final, the final point. Just know that it's part of your story and part of your journey.
Absolutely. We all have a story. We have a journey. I love yours. It went from I can't to I can, and yes. You're doing it, lady. You are a model, and you are really a kind of an illustration. Well, we thank you. For those that's tuning in, we want to thank you for tuning in. As you know, on Fridays we try to encourage you during noon to have just a moment with you, and give you some words of wisdom and encouragement around parenting. Parenting is always it's going to be long. It's going to be hard. It's going to be messy. But I tell you, there's nothing else that's worthwhile. And so if you like what you're hearing, and we'd like for you to tune in with us and follow us and share, get connected with Ask Sharifah and what she's doing in her roundtable discussions. And so let's continue the dialogue. I think if we continue to have healthy debate and dialogue on issues, I think we'll start to see our nation transformed. I believe it starts in the family. I believe it starts with you. I believe it starts with mothers like Sharifah, who is encouraged, and despite her circumstances, she's going to move on to love well and be the mom that the Lord has called her to be. So we thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Victorious Friday. You have a blessed day.